Welcome to Challenger Deep, athletes rising above adversity, where we explore stories of athletes who've faced their lowest points and risen to incredible heights. Did you know Challenger Deep is the lowest point in the ocean, making it the lowest point on Earth? When you're at your lowest, the beautiful truth is there's nowhere to go but up. We all face adversity, but how we choose to respond defines who we become. Join hosts Jeff Hagee and Tammy Matheny as we share powerful stories of everyday athletes' resilience, growth, and triumph. These stories will inspire you to rise above your challenges and reach new heights. Let's dive in.
All right, welcome back to the Challenger Deep Athletes Rising Above Adversity podcast. Excited to have a good friend of mine with us today, Danjee Moser. We're both in the Queen Creek, Arizona area. Danjee and I met as opposing coaches, coaching high school basketball. And I've had the opportunity to get to know Danjee and stay friends with him for a number of years now. And we had the opportunity to have lunch the other day, and he told me a story, and I was like, dang, we need to get you on the podcast. So Danjee, thanks for being with us, but give us some background and an introduction of yourself, please.
Well, thanks, Jeff. And I super appreciate the opportunity just to share this stuff. So, I'm a farm boy from Montana. I was raised on a wild ranch, really. I was raised on a cattle company or a cattle ranch in Montana, growing up, and made my way down here racing dirt bikes, and I've always been physically fit and going until the last 10 years. And then I just decided I was kind of done and coached and did all that stuff and lived through my kids. And, I'd get my little battles when it came to like coaches like you that could out coach me, unfortunately. But, yeah, it was, introduction wise, that's it. I've got 4 kids, and, I'm 49 years old and married to an amazing woman. And yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, yeah, you do have an amazing family, and that was the fun part too. We were coaching against each other, but we also we were coaching our own kids, and so that was a lot of fun.
Hey, this episode of Challenger Deep Athletes Rise Above Adversity is brought to you by doTERRA, the world's leader in essential oils and wellness products. Are you ready to fuel your health and recovery like a pro? Listeners of this podcast can get 25% off all their doTERRA products and supplements. Head to the link in our show notes or go to confidentathleteprogram.com/doTERRA and start your journey to peak performance today.
Let's jump right into it. You're an entrepreneur, you've got that background, about adversity, all that. But you shared a story with me that I would love you just to share that story again, and our conversation will just kind of go from there, because what we do on this podcast, it's kind of stems around our book. And we want to give people examples of how other people have risen above adversity, overcome challenges, and use those stories so they can overcome their own challenges and adversity. So if you don't mind, let's get right into your story, because it's awesome.
Yeah, well, yeah, man, I love that. I mean, because sometimes you don't realize that you're even experiencing adversity because you've just been pushed down for so long that all of a sudden you just forget that you stop challenging life at all, And that's kind of my story. So I raced motocross for a lot of years. I played football, track, basketball, all that stuff, obviously, but then raced motocross, trying to get my professional card forever. I'm a hopeless romantic when it comes to becoming a pro at something. But I raced for a long time, broke a lot of bones. I mean, 40 some bones in my body. I've broken my back, my both jaw bones, multiple bones. But it was when I was going through that. I broke so many bones that honestly, by the time I was about 45 years old, everything had just really gotten me down. Not down to the point where I was, depressed, but more that I was just coasting through life. And now that I look at the way that I was coasting, there's nothing worse than what I was actually okay with, like the frog boiling in the water. It was, life had just gotten so difficult. I just pretty much said, well, my legs are shot. I've shattered my leg and my ankle. There's no way I can run again. I've actually had a chance to have my leg amputated at one point after a wreck. I broke it in 15 places, and so the doctor said I'd never walk normal again. So I just had all these things that and I had overcome those by running the Grand Canyon. In fact, at the time that he told me you'll never run normal again, I was devastated, and I set out on a goal to run the Grand Canyon. There's a rim to rim to rim run that's 50 miles, and I set that was back in my 30s, and I was like, I'm gonna do that. So I did it, and I did it a bunch of times, and got to where I could run again. I mean, pretty good. I look like Quasimodo a little bit when I'm running, but I make it. Just kidding, not so much. But the story that I shared with you was, I kind of had to give you that background just to kind of help you understand. But I had these guys. I have these guys in my neighborhood who are Ironman competitors. They're absolute amazing athletes, at least in their age groups. And they approached me, and they had never done the Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim before, and they heard I had done it. We were at a dinner, and they said, hey man, why don't you take us on it and show us how it's done? Because we don't want to go try it without somebody that's done it before, just for watering spots and fueling and hydration and stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, no problem. Well, I forgot about 15 years had lapsed in between the last time I did it. And I thought I was just going to go crush it. The fastest I ever did it before was 11 hours and 45 minutes, which is a pretty quick clip. And anyway, man, I grabbed these guys, and we went, and I mean, I ate a burger the night before. I was not scared at all. I thought I was going to crush this thing, right? And about 5 miles in, going down, and granted, the Grand Canyon, there's only one way out, right? You go to well, there's two. You can go in a helicopter, but that's really expensive. And you got to fake some serious injuries to get picked up, but or you walk out. And so about 5 miles in, I started to realize, man, this is not what it used to be. And about 20 miles in, I thought I was going to die, right? And I still have 40 miles left on this thing, or 30 some miles left. And I started cramping really bad. And long story short, it was a terrible experience. Took us 22 hours because me and another guy were just bonked. We were done. We got out, we finished, but the day I got out, I realized in that canyon, you're meditating. That's the closest I've ever been to God, at least what I consider God. And I think God's deep down in here, right? And I did a lot of soul searching, and and in talking to these Ironman guys, I just realized that when I was a kid, I had this goal. I watched an Ironman. I remember thinking, I want to do that someday. And I had just realized that I had fallen so far away from that stuff that keeps you going, that passion that keeps life going, that I had kind of just accepted being old at 50, and I said, hell no. I went home, and after that, I went home and I signed up for my first Ironman. And believe me, I was 50 pounds overweight. Well, I was running at about 20, I was about 30% body fat. I was, I had terrible physique. I was in terrible shape. But I decided that the only way it was going to happen is if I signed up. And not only did I sign up, man, I started telling everybody. And of course, everybody just kind of chuckled when I'd say I'm doing an Ironman. Except for those friends, right? And those friends were the ones that were like, no, you can do it. And they kept pushing me. And it was we started working out a little bit together, but I pushed like crazy for the next year and a half. And that was in April of 2024 that I set that goal. And honestly, it took me 20 minutes, maybe 20 or 30 minutes to actually pay for the Ironman, because I so did not want to do it. I could just see this pain coming for the next who knows how long. And I also didn't know how I'd ever come up with the time to be able to do it. But I have learned more in the last year and a half about myself and about life and about what I consider God and the purpose of life than I had ever learned in the previous 48 years of my life. just by pushing myself, by trying to become something more than I had previously thought possible, and by just not yielding to the normal pressures of life. The normal pressures of life is, hey, you're too old. You look weird if you go out there and you push it like you're trying to be a Olympic, triathlete or something, I had to kind of throw that stuff to the wind and say, it doesn't matter, man. It's the challenges that I experienced with my body, my felt. I have two big screws that go through my foot from the ankle all the way through my toes, and kind of that's what held my foot together. And the pain got pretty bad. I broke my back really bad, so the pain got bad there. But I just had to keep getting up every day. And the days I couldn't run or couldn't walk real well, I just swim, right? Which swimming sucks, just FYI. But yeah, yeah. This is my shirt says "Survive, Bike, Swim." Right? You survive the swim. But yeah, so that's the story, and I mean some of the lessons that I learned from it that I think people can, that I hope inspire others. And honestly, I don't actually even, I care that it inspires others, but I know they're lessons I've learned. And watching my kids, I realized that where I was missing the boat is that I was not being the example of the person that pushes to themselves to the limit all the time, but yet I expected it of my kids. And I can only imagine how they sit back and watch their dad. Like, I tell them, I'm like, oh, you got to go to college, you got to do these things, you got to do hard things, and here I am, like cheering from the sideline, But when I completed my first Ironman, just seeing my kids' faces and realizing that their dad was not only doing what he said they should do, but doing what he knew he should do. It's made a massive difference. My kids are all super engaged in athletics and trying to become better themselves, and I've been so inspired just by watching what it's done to them as a father. So and I can share some lessons with you if you'd like. You want me to share those?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to hear more of the lessons and everything, but one of the things that really stands out to me is exactly what we're trying to get across. When people face adversity, you actually have two choices. You're either going to face it and let it defeat you, or you're going to overcome it. And what is it that made you decide, rather than just like, okay, I'm never doing this again, I'm done, compared to, hey, this is life changing and I'm getting back to where I know I should be?
I love it. That's a great question. I honestly think it was the recognition of time. I listened to and I don't even know exactly whose podcast it was or what it was, or maybe it was just a bunch of different books. I know one of them was Hal Elrod and Miracle Morning, and a few others, Atomic Habits. There's a few books that kind of inspired me that I had read previously, but I had never really put into action, right? But for some reason, the time element about life and about the reality of what we believe or what we actually know we have as far as time. That time is it's the greatest prize we have. And you only have a limited amount of it. And it's the most limited substance in your personal life. It's the most limited substance. You can get money, you can get everything else. I mean, you can't get good looks. It doesn't matter how hard I try. I'm just going to be ugly. It's just ugly. But time is something you cannot compromise. You cannot play games with it. You can't. It's every second you lose is gone. I also heard I think it was Lee Brown, and he talked about how at the end of your life you will. I know this inspired me, and it's settled in my brain a lot. But he talks about at the end of your life you will sit back and you'll have to face the ghosts of the potential that you missed in life. Then they'll say to you, he says it in his Southern Baptist style. He's like, we were here and only you could bring us to life, and it's that inspired me. I think more than anything was just recognizing, just seeing myself in my deathbed and saying, is this the man that I wanted to be at this point? And did I do what I wanted to do to now? Because after this, I don't know what's next. And I've done a lot of meditation, I guess, on that. Sometimes we just avoid the thought of death, when sometimes I think we need to embrace it so that we can actually experience the motivation and the propulsion that comes from the recognition that we only have so much time. There's a huge propulsion. It creates I'm trying to think of the word. It creates the momentum that you need and the drive, because you know motivation goes away, everything goes away, but that time element helps you with motivation. It also helps you with discipline, because you recognize that every time, like this morning, I started taking magnesium, and I think it's made me sleep too good. I think. Anyway, I woke up late. I was going to go on a 13-mile run this morning, and I woke up late, and I thought to myself, I had a choice, right? Which a choice I would have made before is, hey, I'm too late. I can't get out and get 13 miles in, so I'll just wait and do it later. But then I realized, I'm like, well, I just wasted what should have been an hour and a half of running. I now have about 30 minutes that I can throw my gear on, don't eat, I might throw a protein shake down this morning, and then I just took off running. And I ran, 3.5 miles, but I ran it as hard as I could run and punished myself a little bit for sleeping in. But that choice, and it's the consistency of those choices based on the fact that I only have so much time, that I think it continues to push me. And it's changed my lifestyle. It's changed my life, not just a day to day. And it's not just one goal. I'm playing the infinite game where this is the kind of person I want to be, which was by far one of the hardest things. And that was just changing my identity. But it all had to do with time, to answer your question. Sorry.
And it's fascinating, because I think if we all stop, we recognize the importance of time, but we like to keep ourselves busy with the busy work, so we really don't have to think that we're losing that time, and we spend it on the busyness instead of what is most important. So it is fascinating, and I like hearing how you were able to conquer that, because I think that's one of the biggest battles in our mind. We think that time is never ending. And I want to tie that in. You referenced really briefly the frog in the boiling water. One of my favorite analogies. But real quick, fill that in so that our listeners that aren't familiar with that.
Okay. Well, so the story of the frog in the boiling water is that if you put a frog in lukewarm water, his favorite temperature, and then you turn the heat up slowly, that the frog will stay in the water, and he'll acclimate to that water until it's literally boiling. Now, whether that's actually factually true or not, I don't actually know. However, the thought or the reality is, what we do in life is we acclimate ourselves to the level or pressure we're feeling from the outside in, as opposed to recognizing that what the outside environment is not matching our internal who we are. So we don't change our environment like we should. Like, they should jump out of the boiling water, whereas because they know that that's not the water temperature they want. Instead, they allow the outside pressures and life to boil them slowly, and they just become very comfortable until they're dead, until life becomes so hot it boils them and they die, or time evaporates and we're no longer have the capability of doing it.
And I love with your story how you've gotten rid of that frog mindset. Because I do think that we all have done that. Now it's easier said than done, and I have often found myself just kind of just accepting the environment that's going along, but you feel inside that's not aligning with your true purpose, your true meaning in life. So I think your story is fascinating and very motivating. Um, for someone that is sitting in that water that's slowly warming up, what are some like actionable items that you can give that maybe have helped you, or in hindsight, yeah, I could have done this to get out of that water sooner?
Well, the first thing that a person has to do is work on their belief, right? And it has to start small. Like, believing that you can be any different is number one, right? And then, because what's happened, I believe, with most of us, for me, I know what has happened is that my identity had been influenced by everything around me. I was not making proactively the choices that I needed to make to be the person I wanted to be. I was focused on money. I was focused on all these other things, right? My social status, my friends, all of these outside influences. I was not focused on me. And so I had to start really small. There's a book called Make Your Bed that's super good. Just start with the small things. Just get up in the morning and start some sort of cadence with the end in mind. But the first thing that has to happen is you have to work on your belief. And a lot of self-help books help me. Um, a lot of introspection, uh, you know, a lot of internal changes had to happen in order for me to even to do what I need to do, and what I had to believe in my ideal of my identity was going to be. I had to believe in that ideal. If I didn't believe in that ideal, then I would it's like a grasshopper in a jar. I would do good for a week or so, and then I would fall back because I really hadn't changed my identity. I needed to identify as someone that I used to be, I think, but yet it was more about people giving me accolades and saying, oh, great job, you're so fast, oh, you did so good, you're great. It was like me trying to fill in the gap of feeling not good enough. Whereas now it's kind of like I'm past that, and I had to find this identity that said, no, I want to go through this life and grind to the very end and enjoy it as much as I possibly can. And realizing that money wasn't the enjoyment, that being wealthy wasn't the enjoyment. I get a greater sense of euphoria and enjoyment running down my little neighborhood street, thinking and talking with God, than I might get standing on a beach in Italy. It's no different, right? It's really that solace that I find within myself when I push myself to those really hard things, or push myself to those limits, is when I feel that euphoric feeling, that dopamine inside that makes me feel alive. And so, but anyway, answering your question, I'm sorry I'm wordy, but it's getting started with small things and then just keep building it. Okay, I've got this. It's habits, habit forming, first identity, then start processes around that, start building a process. And they have to start small and then recognize, hey, celebrate when you win. Like there's nothing cooler than the first time you actually push. Like this morning, I patted myself on the back and I said, you know what? Good freaking job, dude. You could have quit. Instead, you ran like a crazy person for 3.5 miles. And you feel so much better. And recognizing, hey, it's not the medals at the end. It's not the Ironman medals hanging on my wall. It's the millions of little victories you have every time you push yourself to run 12 miles instead of 2. When you push yourself to run, when I first started to run 1 mile, I remember when I ran 1 mile and I was like, yes, it's just those little victories. Those are what make up that medal's just a symbol, right? So that's what I would say, is just getting started and start small and just enjoy the victories. Enjoy the victories.
That's
I
an
love
awesome message. Now, one of the things as you're talking about this, I'm thinking about is, I mean, just like when you first shared your story with me, our audience is coaches, parents of athletes. And as a parent of an athlete or a coach or whatever right now, I hope those listening are motivated and saying, yeah, this is what I'm going to do to make myself different. Let's put ourselves back, 6, 7 years ago, whatever it was that we were coaching those high school kids. What's the message you would give them from this? That, because I think as adults, we can look and say, okay, yeah, I really get where he's coming from because of our progression through life. But as a young kid, you're unbeatable already. What keeps you on the right path so you can learn from this lesson?
Man, well, and the problem is I have to go back and think about myself as a youth. And man, when I was younger, it was like I was bulletproof and it didn't matter, right? So I didn't listen to anything. But I think that with this, what I told my girls back and the boys that I coached that back then, I mean, it was the same type of message, and that is that winners never quit. I mean, that was something we always said, I always said, "Who am I?" I'd yell, "Who am I?" And they would yell back, I'm a winner," and which sounds funny, but when you yell it and you say it over and over again, and then at the end, I says, "And what do winners do? Never quit." Um, I think sometimes life is it's an endurance race and it's hard, and that's reality. But trying to inspire the younger kids, I think that the best thing we can do is show them. Honestly, I think the best thing we could do is show them. I think that they get inspired more by watching older people, just like I do. I got beat in the swim at the triathlon just last weekend by an 82-year-old woman, and I didn't catch her until the run. I mean, that's incredible. And I wanted to grab her and hug her and say, "You are an animal," right? Because within what she's fighting and what she's doing in her life, man, that is inspiring to know that she just drives and pushes. I'm gonna beat her next time, dang it. But yeah, yeah, she was awesome. So I think that if we can inspire kids, the best thing we can do is help them understand that time is limited the best we can. But you just can't teach a lesson without actually showing them that you're the kind of person that does it too. I think that they see it and they hear it, but it won't calculate until they're actually experiencing things as an adult and in a different circumstance before they start to realize that. But I think the best thing we can do is show them, and then just keep reminding them that time is limited, that we really truly don't know we don't know what's next, and we don't know how much time we have. We may not have more than an hour, we may not have more than a day. So put everything you can into it. That's the best I can say.
Love it.
I agree with you so much that I think we all need proof, but I especially think our youth need proof of seeing it, of someone doing it, so they can believe they can do it.
Yeah.
So I think that's awesome. You've talked a lot about adversity, but if you had to break it down, I love asking this question to our guests, but what is your definition of adversity?
Mm,
Because we throw that word out there a lot, but what does that mean?
headwind. No, I believe so. One of the lessons that I learned during the Ironman, which is funny that it took me this long to learn it, but I remember I was about 25 miles into my first Ironman triathlon. I about 25 miles in, there was a hill it's about a mile long. It's 1,000 vertical feet. It's straight up. But I started to cramp so bad, and I started cramping there, and it got worse and it got worse, and then about 8 miles into the run, literally I cramped everywhere. And I was running with a solid, I mean, if you can imagine, and the biggest problem is that I thought it was my last meal the night before, and I did not prepare for this Ironman like I should. I thought I was going to die. I'll be honest with you. I thought the swim's going to kill me, and if it doesn't, the rest will. But I was halfway through this run or so, and I realized that it was funny. Like when I talk to God, it's me and him, it's me and myself talking to each other, but somehow it feels like it's God talking to me too. And I said to myself, this is absolute hell. And you know what God said to me? He says, "Yeah, and you chose it." And then I thought back to the whole choose your hard and all that, and I'm like, man, that's totally true. I'm like, when you choose your hard, you become unstoppable, or you become strong. But when you choose your hell, some adversity that you proactively choose to face in your life, you become unstoppable, because adversity is going to come from two ways. You can either choose to face adversity, choose to put yourself through hard things, choose to train harder, choose to dig deeper, choose to not eat the easy stuff, but eat the stuff that maybe doesn't taste as good, that's going to make you feel better because you're outcome oriented. It's choosing to do those things that make the outside adversity that comes, the headwinds, it makes them more enjoyable. Like I remember the first time on the bike that I hit a good headwind. It was about 5 miles an hour, and I was like, "This is ridiculous, right?" I'm pedaling my bicycle, and some old dude's passing me walking, and I'm like, "What am I doing?" Not really, but that's how it felt, like on a treadmill. Um, but I realized the other day I was in a 12 mile an hour, 12 to 20 mile an hour gusts in a monsoon haboob, and I was experiencing this headwind, and I was enjoying the heck out of it. I was hurting so bad, and I was pushing because I was trying to maintain a higher mile per hour pace, and I was hurting so bad, but I loved it because I think I'm finally learning to be really comfortable in uncomfort, um, and experiencing adversity. We have to get ourselves to the point where we don't go, "Oh, woe is me, this is terrible," but we go, "Oh, this is exciting. This is a challenge, and it's only going to last so long. And at the end of that, how I face this challenge is what is going to define me." And then it becomes exciting, and it becomes motivating, and anytime opposition comes, you get excited about this challenge. Like, yes, 30 mile an hour winds. Now I can't wait till there's a hurricane, No, it's been one of the most incredible, I think, discoveries for me, is that being comfortable in uncomfort is where we should exist most of our lives, which makes the really comfortable times almost uncomfortable because you're not uncomfortable, which is really weird. Like sitting around a pool, watching TV, looking at my phone, it's so uncomfortable now, which I'm so glad. I thank God for it every day.
I'm laughing and smiling because you were mentioning when you were in that monsoon that you said, "Hey, remember you chose to do this." And I've shared with Jeff that I've done a couple of 100-mile cycles, century cycles, and the last one I did had that headwind, had the pouring down rain, and I just remember laughing to myself, "You chose this, so enjoy it." But that shift of, I think our brain wants to complain at first, but when you can get in the habit of making that shift of your talk, it's so simple but so powerful. And
So
that sounds like that's been the biggest thing. You've just shifted your or reframed your self-talk. And I think that's so powerful.
yes, no, that's
I
awesome.
think that's such a powerful message, because that's one thing we talk to our athletes so much about, is how powerful self-talk is.
Mm,
And when you can use the self-talk to direct you in the right direction and the right mindset, that is powerful. The whole premise of our book is to help people overcome adversity. And what you're saying here is the perfect message. When you're not just overcoming it, you're like, bring it on. That's what I love. Like, let's do this.
yeah,
And it doesn't last forever. And it is a victory when you get through there. And so that's the message we want you to hear from this conversation today is, accept that adversity and grow from it. I love that.
yes, yeah.
Bring it on.
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, bring it on. I
Yeah.
just added to it.
There's also some interesting things, and one of the things that I learned is that with adversity comes, sometimes when adversity is strong enough, it becomes a fear. And when fear is coupled with adversity, a fear of whatever you're facing, right? And for me, I didn't have a lot of fear, right? At motocross, and I was a little guy playing football against a bunch of lumberjacks in Montana, and nothing really scared me. Rode bulls, did everything I could do that was stupid, and because fear wasn't a problem for me. But I can tell you the one thing that I didn't realize I was scared to death of, that I do not now, is swimming. Swimming absolutely terrifies me. The first triathlon I ever did, well, the first time I ever got in a pool, really, because in Montana you either ski or slide on snow. You don't, or in water. You don't swim in it. It's too cold. But I swam at the pool, and it was a 3 foot deep pool, and I couldn't make it 25 meters without panicking. Right. And here I am. I'm already signed up for an Ironman. and I'm facing this, in an Ironman, it's a 2.5 mile swim, in open water, in the ocean. And I can't even make it in a 3 foot deep pool, 25 meters without dying. And I'm like, I got 6 months. This is terrifying. And it was, and it's a CO2, builds up in your system really quick. If you're not breathing right, it's all about breathing, but it doesn't really matter. What really mattered was the adversity coupled with that fear was more than I felt I was capable of doing. And I wanted to quit 1,000 times. I don't know how many times I called my wife after swimming at the pool and saying, hon, I cannot do this. I will die. The night before my first Ironman, which was a half Ironman in Oceanside, California, I remember thinking that night that I would not survive the next day. The fear was literally that extreme and completely off base. They've got lifeguards everywhere. I mean, they got jet skis and boats. These people are going to protect you. But in my brain, 58-degree water, the ocean, I was going to die. And experiencing that, and then just, I'm telling you, it felt like the walk that's someone does on their way to the electric chair. When I'm walking that mile down to the starting line.
Dead man walking.
Oh, it was terrible. And here I am just trying to laugh off all my real feelings. And I remember I'm walking down this, down the ramp into the water. And I remember sitting there thinking, there was a big buoy right there. And as I walked around the buoy, I see the water. And I just remember thinking, like, this is where I die. This is where I die. And I had to step I had to step my water into that ice cold, or my feet into that ice cold water. And then I had to get my face in that ice cold water. And then I had to start swimming. And every time you look up, that buoy's a mile away. And as I got out of the water, I met the time limit. Believe me, I didn't freestyle the whole thing, or it was probably one of the most embarrassing swims of all time. But I got through this thing. And I remember when I got out and I started getting on my bike and getting ready, I realized that fear would have kept me from accomplishing something that would be monumental and pivotal in my life. And that most of the time, our greatest accomplishments are probably located behind the things we fear the most. And it was such a huge lesson for me that sometimes you just have to push through it. And I'm still scared to swim. I panicked last time, Lake Mary. I panicked on an Olympic triathlon. I wanted to quit so bad, but overcoming that, and the more you overcome it, my wife says what it is, hon, is you need, what does she call it? Exposure therapy. She says you just need to do it until it doesn't hurt anymore. And
I love that.
It's been the most incredible little gold nugget for me, is that I just need to expose myself to that pain, to that fear, and just put one foot in the water, and then just another foot, and just keep moving forward. It's when we stop moving forward that we're moving backwards.
That is awesome. Well, Danjee, this has been incredible. And
Yes, it
you know, I know our listeners are going to get a lot out of this, whether they're 50 or 15. So thank you for sharing this. And for our listeners, we talk about the lessons in the book. Please, if you haven't got the book, you can go get it. You can get it at tammymatheny.com. You can get it on Amazon. If you just pay the shipping and handling, you can get it at jeffhagee.com/free book. But we'd love for you to check that out. But Danjee, tell our listeners more about where they can follow your journey as well and come and watch you swim.
I don't want nobody to watch me swim. Not yet. It's coming. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it real good. I'm actually, eventually I'm going to be writing a book. I started it multiple times, but I don't know how, and it's called Slaying Goliath. It's about slaying the Goliath within us before we can slay the Goliaths outside of us. And but I don't know when that's going to happen. And I say for now, I suggest they read your book and take what you guys have put together, because I think it's awesome. But I don't know, I don't get on Facebook much. I don't do that stuff anymore. But as far as watching the journey, you know what? My journey doesn't matter near as much as theirs. It's the individual's journey, I think, that is inspiring and awesome, and it makes such a huge impact. I've looked at just the impact of what I've done. I don't know that it's inspired anybody, but the ripple effect through my family, through the people that I'm around, just by changing the direction, by believing in myself, and just by living life to its absolute fullest every day, has made life worth living again. And my heart breaks for the people who somehow maybe the things didn't just all align, that inspired them to just change the direction, to dig deeper, and to become something more, because we're all capable of 1,000 times more. And the greatest loss in life is the loss of potential. The potential we could have had that we didn't actually go after because we were afraid, because we didn't, a lot of us live in this in a lie kind of thing where we pretend to be a certain thing, and with that we get accolades from people, and we need that to kind of keep feeling like we're cool. But yet when you throw it all out there and you just become raw and open, and you just give it your all, and you're just open and honest about it, now everything is down to you to prove it. And that's an important place to get to, where you're no longer just caring about trying to pretend that you're something, but you're actually doing it, and you're on that road. It inspires people. It sort of makes a ripple effect throughout eternity, really, throughout life, through everybody you're in contact with and everybody they're in contact with, and you have no idea how far those ripples are going to go, how many generations they're going to impact. But my hope is that people that they dig deep, that they find a greater strength to accomplish even more than they've already accomplished. And anything they hear that tells them that they're accomplishing their full potential is a lie. We don't even know our full potential, because almost nobody ever goes to their limit. And if you've never met your limit, then you don't know your potential. We scrape the surface of what we're capable of. And so my hope is that my story in some way helps one person. And if they want to reach out to you and reach out to me, I'd be happy to help them out with anything I could. So.
Well, you definitely have inspired at least one person. I've been stuck in my training, and just listening to you and talking to you has already inspired me. So I appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Tammy, before we sign off, do you want to just make comment about our swag shop as well?
All right, we can get the Confident Athlete t-shirts. This is good. If you're not familiar with This Is Good, please reach out. It's a great motto to live by. But Jeff and I have a store now. You can go to www.tammymatheny.store. And Jeff, you have a link as well, I believe, don't you?
Yeah, at confidentathleteprogram.com/store.
So it'll get you to the same place, but we are enjoying the excitement, and we're going to be starting a new little trend hashtag of WEAR, WEAR, in the world, and getting pictures of you in your swag and where you are.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Danjee. Really appreciate it. Appreciate you. Appreciate your friendship and your inspiration. So thank you so much.
No, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. Really do.
What if in just 4 weeks from now, your daily habits, your mindset, and your results look completely different? Better, sharper, more focused. That's exactly what the 4-week win challenge is all about. It's for high achievers just like you, who are tired of starting over and are ready to build routines that actually stick. You'll get the tools, the accountability, and the momentum to crush your goals and build a version of yourself that you're proud of, starting now. So if you're serious about taking the next step, go to jeffhagee.com/win, and let's make the next 4 weeks a turning point in your life.
Thank you for joining us on Challenger Deep, Athletes Rising Above Adversity. We hope these stories inspire and equip you to tackle life's challenges head on. Don't forget to visit www.confidentathleteprogram.com/Challenger Deep to get all of our free resources from the book, your copy of our book, and access to 2 free weeks of the Confident Athlete Program. Remember, in life, adversity only visits the strong. It stays forever with the weak. Let's rise above together. See you next time.